Hey, welcome back to another version of Point Black. And today we got a very, very interesting show for our listening audience. It is one that I think we all are going to find to be fairly intriguing. My name is Adolphus Pruitt, and I'm
Daryl Gray, and you said intriguing. I would say stimulating.
Stimulating.
It's a stimulating conversation.
Now, when ladies and gentlemen, don't pay no attention to Daryl. But he's right. So we kick this thing off, and I tell you where this comes from. Some of us we just read anything and everything we can get our hands on, and there was a article in the Washington Post, and I tend to like the Washington Post. Believe it or not, I shouldn't advertise them, but I have a subscription. With them and some other ones, but it was titled, America has a black sperm donor shortage.
Wow.
And black women are paying the price. And I just thought that this is going to be
Yes,
a
Adolphus,
very
tell us what you thought.
it's going to be a very interesting exploration. Only because of, we when you look at the issue that African Americans, period, and especially African American males, face and how they fit into society today as we see it, we always hear the story about there are not enough good eligible black men for black women out here, and we go and look at what's in the prison system, that all the brothers are locked up in the prison system, and then those that are not may be suffering from drugs, and those who are not are suffering from mental illness, and those who are not that are just suffering, period, from lower socioeconomic status. They don't have the income and the education. They don't have any of that. And when you put all of that together, the pool of eligible black men shrinks to a very low level for eligible black women looking for somebody to be with. And so, and because of that, of course, black women do, like any other women, they no different than any other women, would turn to science and other conveniencies that would allow for them to, at minimum, become mothers and reproduce and bring life into the world. And if the number of available men to get with physically to make that happen is low, well, you can imagine what that number looks like for men who are actually donating to a sperm bank in which a woman can go into. So I wanted to do a deep dive into it and have a conversation about it. And of course, Daryl and I can only speak of it from the male perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And we can only speak from it from a lower intellectual perspective.
Yeah, extremely lower intellectually.
So we had to go to a higher source.
Much higher.
We had to go to a higher source, and I'm going to let Daryl introduce this higher source. And ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this, as you can see, that we are not only having a conversation with somebody who knows about this subject, but they have a little bit more intelligence than we do. And they look better.
And I would say on all of those accounts, you are correct. But I would say they look much, much better and has a much higher intelligence. And so all of those things are absolutely correct. I might be a little bit biased, and I'll explain that as I introduce. But I want to say before I introduce our guests that when Adolphus, when you sent this and you started talking about this is something that intrigues me. It stimulated my curiosity. I'm saying, okay, where did this come from? And then I read the article and I said, yeah, I get it. And I thought about it. I really, and that's what we try to do on this show. I mean, we just don't come with anything. We do our homework. We try to give it a lot of thought. And then I thought about, okay, it's just Adolphus and I having this conversation, but we're talking about how black women are paying the price. And I thought about someone pretty close. She currently resides in the Peach State. That's Georgia for some of y'all who don't know where the Peach State is. And Hotlanta, which is the Mecca, the black Mecca in America. She is Dr. Monica Gray. She's she has a doctorate in education. She is a licensed professional counselor. She's got all these little letters behind her name. LPC, EEDDCAMS. She completed her master's work in professional counseling in 2002 and her doctoral counseling education and supervision program through Argosy University in 2013. She currently serves as an adjunct professor at Point University. She has a thriving private practice in Tucker, Georgia. She's worked as a behavioral health counselor for the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities for the past 17 years in Georgia. Just a wealth of background and experience and professionalism. She's worked with the Coalition of Refugee Mental Health in Georgia and a host of other things. Now, she's also a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Thought I'd get that out and get that out of the way. And she happens to be my third child, my second daughter, my third child. And we want to welcome to Point Black Dr. Monica Gray. How you doing, Dr. Mo?
Thank you. Thank you. Doing well. I appreciate you having me.
Well, I mean, and I want to say, I need to say from the top of the show, with all of the, even though, we're blood related, that wasn't the thing. I thought about your situations, and not just the situation, your experience, your journey as a black woman who has actually been the recipient of sperm donors with 2 children. And so as we talk about this topic, from the Washington Post, black women are paying the price, the black sperm donor shortage. I thought as a black woman with 2 children from this process, you'd be in a much better position to help navigate us through this. And there are going to be some other interesting things that people are going to find out about you. I think that as we have this conversation, because I think that when we talk about it, Adolphus, I think that people who utilize this service, some are single women, some are married women in traditional marriages, some of them are women in modern marriages. And you said it, we're talking about women who have made a decision to have a child and not necessarily through a quote unquote traditional method. And so I'll turn it back over to you.
Not only traditional method, but and also from a cross-cultural.
Yeah.
Cross-cultural because of the shortage. There were some interesting things we found in the article and some other places because of the shortage. They may have to reach outside of their culture. And that is a strong decision, I think, for women to have to make. But Monica, can you talk about, to some degree, your decision, how you made that decision? How do you feel about it at this stage of the game? Would you do it again, and would you advise other women to do the same thing?
Yes, I definitely would. My donor story started a long time ago when I was 22 years old, when I decided for myself to become an egg donor for individuals who needed that. Through that process, I kind of got to see firsthand the stringency of the methods that they use to pick, women to be egg donors. Through the process, I didn't get to continue because I had a genetic marker for cystic fibrosis. Therefore, I was ruled out as a candidate. But it made me kind of look at it in a different type way. Like they really are looking at genetics and paying attention to these types of things when they're having people donate. So when I started, when I decided that I wanted to have another child and I didn't have a partner to do that with, for me, I said, this is something that I could definitely do. I understand that there are lots of requirements and things that they look at, and I'm hoping they're doing their due diligence in that, the way that they put me through the process. The first thing I did was I reached out to the reproductive center through Emory here in Georgia, and they sat us down for a seminar to first kind of discuss what the process would be like. They had an attorney there to talk to us about the legal ramifications. And when I left, I felt comfortable with proceeding. They recommended the California cryobank over the Georgia cryobank because at that time, this was in 2013, Georgia sperm donors had rights. And in California, they had no rights. And that was important to me because I didn't want somebody coming back later on wanting to be in my child's life, that I didn't want. So that made sense to me. When I started with the California Cryobank looking for potential donors, there was definitely a shortage of African American males. My criteria centered around race and education and mental health or medical issues. And I think originally I went from 8 people to 3.
Oh, wow.
Out of the thousands of donors, that they had listed. Ultimately, I landed with an individual who was mixed race. His mother was African American and Native American, and his father was Creole, colonial French, African American, and Native American. And the reason why I went with a multiracial individual was because I already had one daughter at that time, and I wanted my children after that to resemble her. So it was more about my kids looking like each other, and feeling, like siblings than the child looking like me. Even though my daughter did. And that was important to me because growing up, myself and my 5 siblings, we all looked different. Because we had, out of the 5, we had 3 different fathers. And so we looked different, and people would make comments to us about, oh, that doesn't look like that's your brother, or they don't look anything like you. And that's something that stuck with me growing up. And so for my children, I wanted my children to all look alike.
Let me ask you this, too. And you mentioned Georgia versus some other states and your decision. And as we talk to you, I guess I'm looking at this at you as a sampling of people who would go through this process. But in Georgia, as you said, one of the criteria that you used as you talked about race and other things was the fact that in Georgia, the biological, the donor cannot come back. And
in California, I think she said.
No,
yes,
I think
in Georgia they could.
In Georgia they can, in California they can. Right, right. And so, it's interesting as Adolphus, points out, but you saying that the numbers. I mean, the whole idea is that we're talking about shortage here and these numbers. And Adolphus, through that article brought together some different statistics when we look at number of sperm donors by race at 4 of the leading U.S. sperm banks as of October this year. Of course, the major number, the mass number, would be white, followed by Asian,
correct,
Hispanic, then other, and then black is at the end. And so oftentimes, is it a case, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to talk to other women who have gone through this process, is it a case sometimes where women, based upon their desire to have a child, would just simply go with whatever's available?
Hold that thought, Monica. We're going to do a quick station break. We'll be right back with more on Point Black.
Welcome back to Point Black. We had to do a quick commercial break. When we left, we were talking to Dr. Monica Gray, a professional licensed counselor out of Atlanta, Georgia. And we've been talking, Adolphus, with Dr. Gray about the shortage of black sperm donors in the United States. And Monica, you were sharing with us, or the question was asked, in your journey in this process, if you had an opportunity to speak to other women who are going through the process, who have had to settle, we talked about the mass when we talk about the sperm donors, numbers of sperm donors, white at the top of the list, black at the bottom of the list. Have you had an opportunity to talk about that, and how are people kind of dealing with it? And do we find a lot of women simply settling out of their race because of that shortage?
I think we absolutely do. If you look at the stats too, African American and Native American women experience infertility across the board more than our white counterparts. And not only that, of course, the type of help that we get, there's a disparity in that as well. So we're already starting off as a deficit, even though, we need the help and we want the help. So when you move into the availability, once you go through the process and you're trying to find someone, they're just not there. They're just not there. And of course, there are cases where individuals do have to settle because the primary goal is that baby.
Right.
And having, being a parent, being a mother. So we do end up having to settle, for what's there, and sometimes we hit the mark and sometimes we don't.
Monica, what I found interesting was that I started going through some data about how you can become a sperm donor as a man. And before I get in that, it was the unique thing that I thought about. There was a time where people, when they want to get married, you do the blood tests and things of that nature, and we got rid of all of that. But right now, people meet people, fall in love, and they decide to have kids, and they have kids, and when they do that, they don't worry about necessarily that person's background. Hopefully, they got a chance to know them through the courtship, and they could be coming from a family that had bad health. They could be past criminal history, all of that. But if they fell in love with them and wanted to be with them, they get together and have kids. And just like you, I, and most of the folks out here, and the kids came out fairly good. That was, right. I mean,
I did well. I did well.
I guess what I'm saying is that the stuff that they make you go through as a donor and the background pieces and stuff that you as a person would choose in order to have a child, you would make those decisions because of the availability of the information through the process. But if you met somebody and you fell in love with them, you had the kids and none of that would matter. And so I do have some hard time of just reconciling the differences, because I think if you were able to go back and look at the children that people pick because of the resume of the donor and the ones who pick somebody because they fell in love with them, and you look at the kids and see how they came out mentally, physically, and were they high achievers and low achievers, I don't think you would see the significant difference in the learning curve or in the positivity curve. I think at the end it will all come out right. And I think you're making a great point. I think the idea of it is that it's fast paced, as in, getting to know somebody. Of course, some people could get pregnant, immediately, but you think, you're making the right choice and getting to know this person, and everybody's been open and honest about what's going on. But now with the sperm donors, you're paying somebody to do all this for you and hopefully to investigate. I mean, because some of us, I've Googled people before, I've done background checks and things like that. So, these agencies are doing all this work for you. Yeah, the same as the matchmakers. Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is, I wonder if you had the same if say you met somebody and you liked them and you all are dating and you like, I'm gonna be with them, and you did this and they did what they went through to be a donor, and you got the same information. I just wondered the person would say, well, no, I did love them, but I ain't gonna be with you no more because I got all of this on the back end. It just make you wonder. I mean, because you have the information. I mean,
BJ, if anybody had checked out my background the way they check out, I'd never have a girlfriend, man. I wouldn't have any children.
but we're not talking about just the educational stuff. I mean, I'm talking about the genetic stuff.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
No, well, I can't speak to that.
But I get it, and I know there's 2 points that I know we want to deal with. I think that even for me growing up, and I do have some other questions too, Dr. Gray, and I love calling you Dr. Gray. But see, even as a guy, and you said you became a donor, but even as a guy coming up, I mean, coming through college, we sold plasma, blood and plasma. We grew up doing that. Historical black college. You trying to pay your way. You trying to. I won't call any brand names, but you trying to get a piece of chicken at night and maybe have a sip of beer or something before you. So
Popeyes or churches?
Churches. Boy. See, you won't do right to save your life. But you're right. But you're right. So, we do our little church, our little bud before we go in. That's what they'll make us do.
That's a question.
But that's extra money. And so you will. I mean, usually either on Friday, we'll go up to the blood bank, and they take the blood, take the plasma out, put whatever they put back in. You get your little $40, and that's your weekend.
But Daryl, so why? Well, they said in here, Monica is interested. They said in here they reached out to fraternal organizations begging them to be sperm donors, and they didn't get any good response.
Listen,
I don't know why the makers didn't show up.
That didn't trickle down.
I don't know why the makers didn't show up.
BJ, that did not trickle down to the brothers on the yard, man. I mean, listen, if that had to trickle down to the brothers on the yard, man, listen, and Monica, cover your ears. All I'm saying is I would have been happier going up to the sperm bank than I would have been going to the blood bank, man. At least I'm just saying, guys, this is a growth.
Well, and I would assume that there's probably a religious component to that when you're looking at African American men, who are in college and are students.
Got you.
And
I got you.
That would say that are thinking about the ramifications going down the road and having to explain, to their parents, I fathered 20, 30 kids, through the sperm bank. And let's say this is important too, because anonymity is something that has changed only because of DNA, Ancestry.com.
Right.
And, all of this. Now you can find your birth father and you don't have to wait, 20, 18 years to do that.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
A lot of that is changing. So they can't even guarantee, to these sperm donors that nobody's going to find out.
But the other thing that Adolphus mentioned too, and like I said, and we say it, and Adolphus said, you reach out to the fraternal organizations and others. I mean, it's the Divine Nine. I get it, that talented 10th that Du Bois talked about. But, the challenge for black men, and the article spells it out, may not have access to quality health care. Dr. Gray, you talked about that. Excludes donors with felony convictions. I mean, that is a stark reality in the black community among black men.
But that's discrimination. Let me tell you, for you to be excluded as a viable option,
gotcha. You're right,
to produce a child for somebody who wants one, to be excluded simply because of a criminal history. Because let's be clear, I can understand if this was a serial killer. Some psychopath or something like that, but I just wonder when they exclude them for criminal history, was it simply you got an argument in a bar and hurt somebody bad?
White collar crime or nonviolent crime. You're right.
It'd be interesting to dig into that. Monica, based on your knowledge,
just like with the job. Yeah, just like with the job application, they have a portion of the process where they can talk about anything they want to talk about. So if they want to discuss, okay, this is why you may have seen this, or this is something I want to explain, they're able to do that, and you can pay for a voice sample as well. That's not something that comes initially for free. You have to pay for a personality test. You have to pay for baby pictures. You have to pay for voice samples. Those are additional add-ons to purchasing the sperm. But in that, they would have a chance to discuss any history that maybe the recipient would find, to be an issue.
Yeah, but as we said too, and all that, I think this is just fascinating information. I mean, the fact that I have two grandchildren from this process and really didn't understand the process, I think is fascinating. But as we talk about this, the lack of black men, and how easily we can be excluded from this process. Yeah. I mean, even one thing, this mistrust of the medical profession by black men because of a legacy of historical discrimination. Black men, for the most part, we just don't like doctors, period. I don't know what our problem is. I don't know what our issue. I'm blaming Adolphus. I'm blaming BJ. But for some reason, we do.
Well, you just said it, that mistrust.
But we do, and we shy away. But because we do it, we end up with health disparities, or we end up with a lack of a history, a medical history, or like I said. And so then, when we talk about it, and on average, and I wanted to deal with the cost of Adolphus without going into Dr. Gray's personal business, but it is on average. It says the sperm is sold $950 to $1,300 per vial, and that does not necessarily mean that it's going to work.
Correct.
And
Correct.
then
It's per vial,
right? But
it's higher for anonymous donors.
Oh.
Though that's the higher. So the lower end is around 400, 500 for a donor who doesn't care if you know who they are. But if you want someone who's anonymous, it's more on the higher end, like you said.
Interesting.
But like you said, the donors receive, like you said, now, and that's $70 to about $150 per donation. So that's per vial. So anyway, I'm just saying, when I compare that to, I'm going back to the whole blood thing that I did. When I compare that to that $30, $40 I got versus $150, I mean, that's a book. I'm buying a book. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know how often one can go back when you're donating blood.
You can go back. I was just reading. Now, here's what's interesting. And now, after you go through all the psychological tests and all the other tests, here's when it gets down to where the rubber hits the road. They said once you pass all of that, the physical part, then they had to test your semen to make sure it tested for motility, make sure it moves well, and test it for overall health. And then they said that initial sample is destroyed, then you'll come in, and now listen to this, Daryl. They said after signing a contract, you begin to make regular deposits. But there is one more hurdle you have to get through. Your initial samples are frozen for 6 months.
Wow.
If they are still good after they have been thawed, then you are eligible to be a regular donor. It is important to note that many sperm don't survive the freezing process, so passing initial exams are not a guarantee you will qualify. So when they freeze you, if they unthaw you and you spoiled, you are spoiled.
So my boy got to be able to swim upstream and deal with the polar Arctic weather too. I mean, come on, that's a lot to ask a brother, BJ. I'm just saying, I got to know how to swim, and I got to like the cold. Right. That ain't even anything a brother likes to do.
Well, and let me tell you why this is so important. So they are making extra money by storing these vials, because think about it. My child, I had in 2014. I bought the vial in 2013. I had him in 2014. This person had been a donor since 2012. Okay? So I bought the vial in 2013, got pregnant in 2014. The second time I got pregnant was in 2020. So I don't know how long he was giving vials, but these vials had been sitting there in storage all the time.
Oh, wow.
I'll tell you the other thing.
You can buy several vials, and they're going to charge you to store them for you, basically. I didn't. When I went back in 2020, he just happened to have more vials left.
But see, that's the other thing too, Dr. Mo, is that, and Pruitt talked about it, the competition, how does it also drive competition? And I'm talking about financially, Because you've got some people that can afford to go to the mat and wait and do whatever they need to do. But when you're talking about $950 to $3,000, I mean to $1,300, you're talking about a waiting process. You're talking about, is it feasible or advisable for somebody to make sure that they have their own lawyer versus the sperm bank, lawyer being on? Do you need your own doctor, or is this covered under insurance? I mean, this is a very costly proposition.
Wait a minute, but there's a mental health issue here for the donor. Because you go through all of this, they take your stuff, they freeze it for 6 months, and thaw it out and come back and say, hey, you ain't no good. No-go. You ain't no good.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Yeah, let's talk about that.
I'm just saying, can you imagine, and if this is a young person who want to have kids in the future and stuff, can you imagine psychologically, though, seriously, what you just put on them? Because you basically tell them that they sperm may not be of any good, at least not good enough to join the club.
You're right.
But there are, I'm gonna share something else. It says that, but if the samples are good following the thawing, you will be asked to donate at least once a week, or ideally between 6 to 10 times a month.
Where's my calculator at?
They said donors earn. They said donors earn $100 for each donation.
Man, they should have told me this about a month before Christmas. They should have told me this Thanksgiving.
Yeah, hey, they say healthy men are able to earn up to $1,500 a month.
And for college student, like you said, Adolphus, you're right. When we talk about college student, be you in trade school or you have an academic stream, whatever. That's
easy money.
That's it is, and that definitely. So I can understand why they would go to
but the pool. But here's what I'm trying to get at: if they excluding the pool to certain individuals that meet certain standards.
Oh yeah.
So that $1,500 a month is possible. Yeah. But it's a small pool of people that's making it.
Because like
everybody else is locked out.
Because going, like you said, when we talk about that shortage and. Here it says the waiting list. They were talking about a bank in California. The waiting list for in-demand white donor is generally 3 months. The wait for a black donor can stretch as long as 18 months. And women in their late 30s and 40s who are facing diminishing fertility due to age simply can't wait. So So here we are. I said, Dr. Mo was specific. She said, my daughter, as we say in the country, my daughter light-skinned. So I want my children to be light-skinned. We say that in the country. We say light-skinned. Mm-hmm. And so that was part of, the box that she wanted to check. So she was okay with someone who was mixed, racially mixed. But as Adolphus said, and which kind of spurred this whole conversation, if you are talking about black women who don't want, then it's slim pickings.
Well, the one article did, not this one, another one, it may be in this one, talked about some folks who now do not rely on these things, and now they got BJ, they got to set up on Tinder where you can go online and do a matchup for a donor, and you may not have all of the information that you have from going through these other sources, but they show some people have done that and things came out okay,
Yeah, but that's scary to me. And listen, there's so many scams and schemes and conspiracies going on out there. I think that, both of you and Dr. Mo mentioned it, and you mentioned it too, Adolphus, this whole idea of ethnicity. And I think it's important. And Monica comes out of a family that is, my background, mixed family, got some white in it, got some Native American in it, got some of everything, because that's just how we roll in the South. But ethnicity matters. Resemblance matters. When you choose, and children want to belong. And so all of this is important, Adolphus. And the question becomes then, as you and I talk about it, and you're big on solution, as we move through these conversations, a lot of times we're trying to look at, okay, how do we get this resolved? What do we say? And we're not, okay, we're getting, listen, we've talked 22 minutes. We got to go on another break. Listen, BJ has got to pay these bills because we got to pay Craig. And so y'all stand by. We coming right back, and we want you to stay tuned to Point Black.
Welcome back to Point Black. And Monica, I'm calling you Dr. Mo since he's been calling you Dr. Mo.
That's what they call him.
We were talking about why we think black men are discouraged from even going through the process. We talked a little bit about that earlier. But when we were off, you made a point about timing. But the other point I wanted to make sure you bring out is talk about what happens to what rights do the individual who was born out of this process have once they become adults? Do they have any rights?
So the donor children, donor siblings, individuals conceived from donors at the age of 18, they are able to write a letter to their donor, and the sperm bank is charged with making sure that donor receives that letter. So whether or not they want to respond to the child, is up to them or the young adult. But they are supposed to have, the child is supposed to have the ability to submit that letter to them. When we were talking, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure real quick. So you're saying that I show up, they approve me, which I know I have super,
Oh, Lord,
my stuff is.
It's everything's going well.
I eat good. I eat good food.
Oh, God.
I eat good
You're
food.
healthy. You just say you're healthy.
I'm healthy.
Okay.
So I go there and they approve me, and people get my samples, and now I got 10, 15, 20 children out here that they don't know me, I don't know them. But each time every one of them hits 18, they can write to the place in which they come from, who helped the donor, and that place has an obligation to send me a letter, so I can get 18 letters in the future from individuals
you
saying,
get more than that.
They say, hey, daddy, you my daddy, and I want to get to know you. I can get those letters, and they have to send them to me. And
wherever you at in life.
Oh, wow.
18 years later.
Oh, wow.
Well, and for me, I want to. It's interesting, and we our show is going to be on different platforms, and one may be a gospel station, but we want people to understand that all we're trying to do is educate and inform people. These are conversations that everyday people have. And you may not have it sitting in the pew, but you're going to have it sitting somewhere across the table. But because when we begin to talk about reproductive rights, this is a very specific issue as relates to reproductive rights for black women. And so we've got to have these conversations, Adolphus and Dr. Mo, no matter how uncomfortable they may be, they're valuable conversations.
But I don't, let me say this. I don't think we had to say that to the listening audience, because this is facts. The world exists, and this exists in our world. There are these sort of sperm banks, and all across the country, we have women and people every day donating and receiving, and not just men donating sperm, but women donating eggs. And so this is a part of life. It exists.
I agree.
It exists in this country. And as we educate people on its existence, those who disagree at least have the opportunity now to try to do something about it. And those who do, and those who agree, have an opportunity to participate.
And you know what? and it's real. And I think that particularly in our community and our culture, we've been family oriented. We're always going to be family oriented. Having a family family is important. Having a family is important. And I think that what we try to do is just, I almost use the word expose people.
Well, I think inform.
Inform.
You know, we're not here to discourage, any African American males from being donors, because we know that there's a lack, of sperm for these African American women who have higher infertility rates, who need this type of help. So we want to encourage them, but we also want to inform them of the possibilities of what could happen, during this process. My particular donor, we have about 28 kids so far. And when I say so far, it is so far, because they put a limit on the number of families that you can get pregnant. So it's usually between 10 and 15. However, if you have had a child by this person, you can continue to get as many vows as you want and try to get pregnant as long as the vows are available.
Wait a minute. You said 28.
I knew he was going to say that. I knew.
28. So this is.
I knew
hold on. We know who
with that. No, he's a numbers guy.
I know who the donor is. 28. What's the guy that does Wilding Out?
Oh, Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon.
Oh, Nick Cannon.
Nick Cannon got 12. Nick got 12.
Is it 28?
Nick's a bag all by himself.
Oh,
Nick is a bag.
12?
Yeah, he got 12.
Also, it ain't Nick Cannon. Okay. Dr. Moore, I thought we discovered who it was.
It is. No, it's not Nick. No,
Nick Cannon is not my baby daddy.
It's not Nick Cannon. Okay.
And that's gonna be. Hey, that'll be the theme of this show. Nick Cannon is not my baby daddy.
But you brought up. But Dr. Moore, let me ask you a question. I read a point. They said there was a survey conducted by Fertility IQ, and Reverend, they said they found that black women were roughly 3 times more likely than white women to believe their ability to conceive relied upon religious faith or God's will. They were less likely to view fertility as something dependent on a medical provider.
Right.
That's interesting.
And so they won't get the help. Yeah, they're less likely to get the help. And even when they do, it's less likely that it's going to come to a live birth. So even when they do get help, it doesn't necessarily, if I go through the fertility treatment, it doesn't mean that I'm going to get pregnant this way either.
So, but in vitro, we can put into a woman an egg and a sperm in vitro or through ways other than normal conception, normal sex. But isn't it God's will that sperm and that egg fertilize and life comes out of it? Now I'm throwing a serious question. Isn't it? If something comes out of it, isn't that God's will?
Yeah.
Well,
I think they're looking at it in terms of the limitations. Like, I'm not supposed to mess with it.
Right.
If it doesn't happen naturally,
exactly.
I can't insert myself into this. Or science into this. I have to have it happen naturally.
And I think that's
it's not
it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the sperm meeting the egg and that synapses occurring that creates life, I don't think man dictates that. And I know we going in very deep conversation, but I don't think man dictates that. I think that is God's will.
With IVF, they put the egg and the sperm in a petri dish and they fertilize the egg there. And then once it fertilizes, then they implant it in the uterus of the woman. So it doesn't have to, with, IUI or, regular pregnancy, the sperm is traveling through the fallopian tube and it meets the egg there and it's fertilized and it travels on. But some women have blocked fallopian tubes. So because of that, they have to go through with the IVF instead.
Yeah, but with the normal, I'm saying normal, but in the stuff we're talking about though, most of that is where somebody's getting involved and it's put up in you. It's not where the sperm and the egg are being met in the lab and put in a petri dish. We're talking about just the opposite. The only difference is that the sperm is being artificially implanted in you versus the normal way. Am I right or wrong?
So that's IUI. When the sperm is inserted, that's IUI.
Okay.
IVF, the fertilized egg is inserted not the sperm.
And I think that
And which is, well, I don't know, but which is more prominent today? Would you say, just out of curiosity, just to take a wild guess at it? We haven't done any research, but will you think the IUI is more?
Yeah, the IUI would probably be more common because it's less expensive, and they'll try that first. And if it doesn't work, then they'll move towards the IVF.
Got it. I didn't mean to interrupt
no,
you, Derek.
that
Go
was
ahead.
good. That was you listen. I think that our listeners are definitely learning something today, and I think that there are people in our listening audience that will benefit from this. I mean, the different options. People who want to have families, young people who are starting out, people who are older, people who are in modern families and not traditional families. And so I think that this has been an extremely healthy conversation. But I think that moving forward too, and it's, as a pastor, as a minister, and I didn't mention that Monica is also an ordained minister.
Oh,
So
great.
it's Monica is Reverend Dr. Monica Grace. So she's
Reverend
also
doctor, the right reverend.
an ordained minister. But as we talk about this whole idea about reproductive rights and this, I'm going to be interested in hearing somewhere down the road how this factors into the whole conversation of where does life begin. I'm just, because as we talk about this, and particularly on different stations, just the whole idea about childbirth and the ends in which we go, the means that we seek in order to be fulfilled for families, women, fathers, mothers, families to be fulfilled. That it really is a lot. And as we look back at it, Adolphus, I want to thank you for this conversation because I learned a lot in this research. And I know we're going to have to get up out of here. Listeners, we have been blessed to have with us Dr. Monica Gray from Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you, Dr. Gray, for sharing with us today. Adolphus, man, listen, it's good to know that you're healthy, man. And listen, there's still a market out there for you.
Well, Monica, let me, Monica, let me say this. It was a pleasure to meet you today. It was very informative. Really do appreciate it, and look forward to hearing more about this subject matter from you and other people. I hope that you're sharing your experience with other women who are having the same problem, because I think based on the conversation I just had with you, you truly can be helpful for them.
Listen, thank you all.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you all, and thank you to
Absolutely.
our listeners. And this has been another edition of Point Black. We'll talk to you again next week.